Episode 3 is finally out, and there were many small details I noticed that might be crucial for later on in the show. So, here are 5 things you may have missed in episode 3. Let's get right into it. We have a new definition of what the Force truly is. During Ahsoka's training with Sabine, we learn of something that changes the meaning of what the Force really is. For years as fans, we've always seen the Force as something you either have or you don't. Well, Ahsoka changes the theory of that. Years ago, George Lucas explained what the Force meant and that it's in all living things. This is something that Yoda has preached for years, and we see that especially in Luke's training in The Empire Strikes Back. But what exactly does this mean? Well, this means that basically anybody can wield the Force. Yes, even Han Solo or Padme, for example. Now you might ask, why don't they choose to use it then? Why have we never seen Han Solo using a Force pull or a Force push? Well, this is the catch. It's really up to the user whether or not they pursue it to learn Force abilities. George Lucas stated that there are some who are just naturally born and gifted. Those that are gifted have an easier time with training, and they can maximize their Force abilities a lot easier and faster. That's where midichlorians come into play. Somebody like Anakin would have a way easier time connecting to the Force than somebody like Jar Jar Binks. No matter how hard Jar Jar could train, it could take him years to reach 1% of what Anakin would be able to do even as a young boy. But the point is from this, it allows anybody the opportunity to be Force sensitive, that is, with the right training and dedication in order to discover it. Now, going back to Sabine, we learned that her midichlorian count is probably around the same as a rock, but if she continues to explore this and train with Ahsoka, then she could actually develop a connection to the Force. I feel like we will see her make progress throughout the season, and while many fans may not like this, I will say I do like that she isn't seen as instantly strong with the Force and that she actually has a character development here. I mean, we actually get to see her struggle, get beaten, and then see her character grow over time. By the end of the series, we might be able to see Sabine do small things with the Force, but I don't think anything major. One of the coolest things I thought in episode 3 was Shin Hati's headpiece while in her fighter. Did you recognize how this headpiece looked? Well, it was identical to what Anakin and Obi-Wan wore in the opening scene of Revenge of the Sith. While it's a small detail, it might mean more than we think. More and more, we're discovering that Baylan Skoll and his apprentice Shin are taking on Jedi ways in a lot of forms, but still not referred to as traditional Jedi. To give you an example of this, we even see Shin wear a Padawan braid, although there's no Jedi Order happening, so it's definitely very interesting to see. One of the things that is everybody talking about was Ahsoka going outside of the ship and battling out with her lightsabers. But did you notice what she was wearing? This is what looks like an envirosuit. For those that don't know, envirosuits were worn by any human species or human-like species in order to survive in hostile environments. This included poisonous gas, deep ocean water, or space vacuum. This allowed Ahsoka to have oxygen and it maintained pressure inside the suit. What was cool about this scene was that it was a direct parallel to Plo Koon's episode in the Clone Wars, Riving Malevolence. It was a very similar style to how Ahsoka took on these fighters while outside the ship, and I really thought it was a cool nod. This wasn't the first time Ahsoka used a suit like this though. For those that don't know, her and Anakin wore similar suits like this in season 2 of the Clone Wars. While these parallels were great, what I loved the most was the Galactic Republic symbol on Ahsoka's shoulder. You can tell this suit is definitely from the time of the Republic, and I personally love this small Easter egg. Did you notice this reference?
Realize, historically, there have been very few Mandalorians who ever became a Jedi.
For those that don't know, Hewing was referring to Tarre Vizsla. Vizsla was known as a Mandalorian Jedi. He was the first of the Mandalorian to enter the Jedi Order, which dates all the way back to 1050 BBY. Vizsla was a Jedi Knight and the creator of the Darksaber. The Darksaber was the leadership of the house he founded called House Vizsla. When Vizsla passed away, the Darksaber was kept in the Jedi Temple, until, later on, it was stolen by the members of his house during the fall of the Old Republic. Ever since it was stolen, it was then known as the weapon to unite Mandalore. In honor of Vizsla, there was a statue of him later on Mandalore. We actually see a brief appearance of the statue in the series Forces of Destiny when Sabine visits with her brother Tristan. Not only this, but if you didn't know, Vizsla was the ancient ancestor of Pre-Vizsla in the Clone Wars and Paz-Vizsla in the Mandalorian. Pre-Vizsla actually refers to Tarre Vizsla when speaking about him in this scene.
This lightsaber was stolen from your Jedi temple by my ancestors during the fall of the Old Republic.
I thought this was a pretty cool nod to the original character. While we only got about 30 seconds of screen time from Baylan Skoll in this new episode, there's something I noticed. Did you notice Baylan Skoll wore a ring on his right hand? While we don't know much about it, it's very similar to what Snoke wore in the sequels. Now, I'm not saying Baylan Skoll is Snoke, don't worry, but I find something interesting here. Snoke's ring was obsidian material, which if you don't know, is the same material Vader's helmet was made of as well as Durasteel. But what's interesting to me is that Snoke actually obtained this material from a Sith cave underneath Vader's castle on Mustafar. So, is Baylan's ring the same material, and if so, could this be a link to Vader? We do know that Vader's identity as Anakin was kept a secret for a very long time, but as we saw in the trailers and promotions, Baylan did in fact know he was Anakin under the mask. So it should be really interesting to see what's to come for episode 4. It's been seen that the next episode will focus around a lot of lightsaber duels in the forest with Ahsoka versus Baylan Skoll, and a rematch between Sabine and Shin Hati, so I'm super excited to see how this goes. What did you think of episode 3, and what would you rate it out of 10? Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you, always.